Hello and welcome to On the Prowl. I'm your host, Austin Verde, and with me today is the coach of the Hahnville Tigers, Coach Nick Saltaformaggio. Thanks for joining us this week, Coach.
Thank you, buddy.
Coming up on today's show, Coach Salt will take a look back at last week's game against the Covington Lions, and we'll get Coach to look ahead to this Friday's second playoff game against the John Ehret Patriots. Congrats on your win, Coach. How does it feel to be in the second round of the playoffs?
Oh, it's always fun to still be coaching in mid-November, so we got a tough opponent coming up. We just got finished playing a really tough opponent, but that's what the playoffs are all about, buddy. Everybody's good now, so we just want to keep taking care of Hahnville and doing what we do and do it well.
What are some things your team has to improve on to keep this winning streak going?
Well, the first thing is we have to get better in our kickoff coverage. We've been really negligent in our kickoff coverage the last 2 weeks. We had one return for a touchdown in Week 10 against Thibodeau, and then we go up 7-0 last week and have one return back to our 15-yard line. So that's something we have to get better at. The kicking game becomes more and more important as you work deeper into the playoffs. And then I just think also our offensive line, which has been a very dominant part of our football team for the entire season, didn't have their best game Friday night. So, coming up this week with John Ehret, we really have to emphasize moving our feet, keeping our head up, hand placement, and just getting on those bodies and moving them out of the way so Devontae and Cade and Anthony can do their thing.
Do you think Covington was a tough opponent as you thought they would be?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, going into it, whenever you play a program that has just that kind of tradition, I'm a true believer in that the state playoffs are about programs and not teams. And the better programs are going to work their way through the bracket. Well, we come right out the bat and play a Covington team that had beaten a very good Mandeville team the week before. And they had some lapses during the season, but when you look back at their entire picture of their football program, they've been a traditional Louisiana football power for a long, long time. Their head coach, Greg Salter's grandfather, Jack Salter, the stadium's named after him, was a state championship coach, had been in the state finals a couple of other times. So, we knew coming in what kind of program we were going to be dealing with. And then on top of that, they have two exceptional football players. Their quarterback, Alfaro, and their running back, Broomfield, were two of the top players in the metropolitan area. And, so we knew going into the game what kind of battle we would be in. What we didn't realize was how physical it was going to be. Covington was extremely physical at the line of scrimmage, and it took us a little while to get going.
Thanks, Coach. Let's take a look at the first half highlights.
We defer to kick, to receive the second half, so we come out and have to play defense, and we do a really nice job early in the game of managing their RPO game. We get a nice sack right there by Cameron Cabral. We get the punt, and then we go right to work. We get a little bubble screen out to Anthony, and he makes some people miss, but we weren't able to finish with the score. So it's still a 0-0 game, and again, we play defense. We get the stop, and then we get a nice long inside run by Anthony, making some people miss, running over a few people, and we actually go in and score on this particular drive on this long run right here by Anthony. And he just makes some people miss and run through some tackles, and we're up 7-0, and feeling pretty good. When you get that first touchdown, you feel pretty good about yourself. Austin comes out and makes a really nice play to Brandon Johnson, who's come on for us the last few weeks. We've had some injuries at that position, and Brandon has been really tough for us. And Anthony makes a play, makes literally something out of nothing. Sometimes you don't like to see that happen, but when you have his kind of skill, as long as he's got the ball in his hands, good things are probably going to happen. And we get the ball down to the 5-yard line again. We don't finish, but Dalton Malonsaw comes in and he makes a field goal for us. And now we're up 10-7, I think, at this point. And we give up a long kickoff return, and Covington goes in and scores. And now we're down 14-10, and we respond right away on a 3-play drive with Devontae Clark doing the majority of the damage for us here. And gets 2 long runs, and then his third run in a row, he finishes it off with a touchdown, and we go up there 17-14, and we really don't look back. Our defense played exceptionally well, as Elijah Brent with the tackle for loss, and We get a fumble recovery, again, after a nice little drive by Covington. We get a fumble recovery that kills the drive, and then Dalton comes out, gets a great punt. We do a really nice job down in the ball at the 1 yard line, actually inside the 1 yard line. And those are the kind of plays in your kicking game that you need to have to keep advancing in the tournament.
In the Herald Guide, you stated about Covington that they have 2 really quality football players in their quarterback and running back, and those guys are really tough to slow down. Do you think your defense helped counteract that firepower?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, we gave up, like I said, we gave up 17 points in the game. And I think for most Friday nights in the state playoffs, if you can hold your opponent to 17 points, you're probably going to win the game. It's funny, we've kind of spoiled a lot of people in that we win the game 31-17 and people thought we played poorly. But, the fact of the matter is we had over 400 yards of offense. We didn't finish some drives, and that's something we need to work on going forward to complete our drives. But I thought our defense played very, very well. We held Brumfield to about 112 yards on 20 carries, which was way below his yards per carry average. And, Alfaro, who's a big guy, he's about 6'3", 215 pounds, with some deceptive speed. They run a really fine scheme with that front side zone read that they do, and we were able to get him down on the ground because he's a big guy. So I was very pleased with the way we played defensively.
By halftime, your team was in the lead 17-14. Do you think you should have had a farther point difference?
Yeah, like I said, we didn't finish some drives early in the game, but it's the state playoffs, and rarely are you going to get those matchups where you blow people out. We've had them the first 2 years. My first 2 years here, my first year here we played Natchitoches Central and beat them very handily in the first round, and last year we played Alexandria and beat them very handily in the first round. So you do get those kind of matchups occasionally, but more often than not, you run into a Covington. More often than not, you're going to run into a first-round opponent that they deserve to be in it. They're very good, And if you look through the bracket, Ponchatoula played a 30 seed in Como and had to kick a field goal with no time left on the clock to win the game. So that's what the state playoffs are all about. You don't get a whole lot of mismatches in the state playoffs, and certainly not in this next round of 16. Almost everybody is an equal opponent to who you're playing.
In the Herald Guide, it states that Friday night was a defensive slugfest for much of the night. Would you say that this is true?
Yeah, no question about it. And you want it to be, in the state playoffs, Austin, you wanna fight defensively all the time. You want to be the better defensive football team all the time. Because the other team can't score, you're going to win. But more often than not, if you're the more physical football team, if you're the better defensive football team, you're going to leave doubt on the other side of the field. And the minute that team has that doubt, that can we win, do we have the ability to score, they start pressing and doing things that may be a little bit out of their comfort zone. And I think that's what happened with Covington late in the third quarter when we started to kind of impose our defensive will on them. They started throwing more vertical balls downfield, which we intercepted 3 of them. They just kind of got out of what they like to do, which is pound Brumfield up in there and then pull it with Alfaro running the edges. So it's always going to be about defense in the state playoffs, and hopefully again this week we're going to play a really good defensive team in John Ehret. So hopefully our defense is up to the task, and I know they will be.
Let's take a look at the second half highlights.
We receive the second half kickoff. We get a nice return, and then the very next play after the return, we hit Anthony on a RPO read, and he gets it in there and gives us a 10-point lead, which we kind of really didn't look back from. Again, you get that 2-score lead in the playoff game, and it makes you feel better about yourself. And there we are defensively, swarm tackling on a 3rd and short, where allowed us to get off the field. Covington gets a nice drive. They're going to go for it here on 4th down. We stop them. Again, they get a nice drive. Again, they're going to go for it on 4th down again late in the game right here. And we're going to wind up getting an interception in the end zone by Rashad Domino, who just has been a very, very good football player for us through his 4 years at Hahnville. And that's his 4th interception of the year, and just really did a nice job. And now we're able to get the ball back in our offense's hands, and Austin makes a great throw to Anthony on a 3rd down completion, keeps it alive, and We get the ball to Anthony, he makes, again, a nice cut, makes some guys miss, runs by a few guys, and we wound up scoring and finishing up on that drive. We get a short field here because they go for it on 4th down, and then Anthony again makes a nice move and puts the game away, and we go up there 31-17. And when you get up by that a margin late in the ball game like that, you just want to go out and kind of play a little bit safer on defense, back your defensive backs up a little bit further, not give up the big play, and then on offense, just don't turn it over. Don't give them any hope, and we were able to do that and come away with a hard-fought win.
How was Rashad Domino's interception in the end zone an advantage to Hahnville coming out with a victory?
Well, it kept the game a 2-score game, and so you have to feel, you start looking at that clock ticking down, and in my mind, I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like, well, they've only scored a field goal and a touchdown in the first 3 quarters of this game. So for them to beat us, they're going to have to score 2 touchdowns in the last 12 minutes, and it just didn't add up for us. So to have that interception in the end zone to keep it a 2-score game meant that Covington was going to they were going to have to get out of their comfort zone. They were going to have to start doing some things they didn't want to do. And we felt really good about the way our secondary was playing. Hopefully they continue to play that way as we go through the tournament.
How was Clark's comeback after an injury last game a help to Hahnville's overall offensive threat?
Oh, he's a huge, huge part of what we do offensively. He was over 100 yards. We have 2 running backs over 1,000 yards for the year with he and Anthony. And, what Devontae gives us is a tough inside run game. He's able to move the pile. He doesn't have the speed that Anthony has, but he has very, very good speed. So people look at him and think that, well, he's a guy that maybe the second back, but we don't look at him now. He's kind of our first running back. He's our guy that we want to get the ball inside the B gaps, A gap, B gap, inside run game. He runs inside zone very, very well. He has very good hands. He caught a couple of balls on some screen passes. So having him back was very important for us.
By the third quarter, you were far ahead. What changed in your team from the first to second half?
I just think you get comfortable playing. Our guys got comfortable playing. And again, at halftime, we went in at halftime again and coming out, I just told those guys, there's only 32 teams still playing tonight, and so you're one of the best 32 in this state in 5A football. Get out, go out and have fun. Enjoy your home crowd. Again, we have unbelievable crowds at our games. It's a lot of high schools that never get to experience the type of atmosphere that we experience every Friday night in Tiger Stadium. So, we really didn't even talk about the game. We just talked about the crowd and playing at home and enjoying football and taking advantage of an opportunity to have a great Friday night in front of your family and your friends. And I think we were just way more relaxed in that second half.
Thanks, Coach. Coming up next, we'll get Coach to look ahead to this week's game against the John Ehret Patriots. We'll be right back. Welcome back to On the Prowl. I'm your host, Austin Verde. How do you plan to prepare for John Ehret, being that they are ranked so closely at number 9?
It's 2 good teams playing, number 1. Number 2, kind of our mantra's been that there's not anything we can do about our opponent. We have to take care of Hahnville, Austin, and that's what we're doing. We're just making Hahnville better. I think when you look at John Ehret, obviously they were in the state championship game last year and got beat by Zachary. Lost a lot of those guys off last year's team, but what John Ehret has always been known for forever is just a ferocious defensive football team. So the biggest part of our preparation is going to be, maintain ball control, block the point of attack as effectively as we can, don't turn the ball over, and then defensively just not give up the big play. And then hopefully we're better than them in the kicking game. Although their kicking game is fairly decent, hopefully we're a little bit better than they are in the kicking game. We have to take advantage of playing in Tiger Stadium. I mean, to play at home, to have the home crowd that we get, to have the student section that we get, our band, all the auxiliaries that go along with the band, our high steppers and our cheerleaders, and just the whole group have to show up in force and make it a loud kind of raucous night, and I think we'll be okay. Our kids are playing with a lot of confidence. Our football program is really going in the direction I'd hope it would go. This is our third year in a row with 9 wins. Our senior group has won a bunch of football games since I've gotten there, and so they just have to take advantage of all those things. And then, obviously for us, to get the ball to our skill guys in some space, because I don't think a lot of people have answers to Anthony in space or Jamel in space or Devontae in space. And if we can get those guys in space, it'll be a good night for us.
What are your predictions for this week's game?
I always predict we're going to win, So I think, going into it, again, the big thing for us is don't turn the ball over. Austin has to have a very good game. When you start to get in the round of 16, round of 8, quarterback play is magnified 1,000%. So our quarterback play has to really be great, and it should be. Austin is one of the greatest winners and greatest competitors I've ever been around. And then, defensively, again, just being vicious, just being downright mean, and knocking some heads around on Friday night and imposing your will on your opponent. And if we're capable of doing those things, and if we do those things, we'll win the game.
In the Herald Guide, you stated that you need to play defense to get through this tournament. How do you plan to build up your defensive threats for this Friday's game?
Well, we've really done a great job working on individual skills. I think more often than not, you get defensive programs, defensive coordinators, defensive coaches who are more worried about scheme and what we're going to do schematically. And I'm one of those guys that I think you just get the individual players better and simplify what you're doing. And if you can be better because individually you know your position and you can manage your position and you can do the things that your position calls for you to do every time you're called upon to do it, then scheme's irrelevant. So one of the things we're doing is just working really, really hard to perfect our individual craft, whether it be a defensive back, an inside linebacker, an outside linebacker, an interior defensive lineman, an edge rusher, just getting our individual crafts better. And it's working. It's gotten better as we've gone through the course of the season. So I think those are the things that we need to do and continue to do defensively to get ourselves ready to play in this tournament.
What are your expectations for the playoffs as they progress? Who do you believe are your big threat teams?
The next one you play, and again, I hate to use a cliche, but your next opponent is always your toughest one. And, I told our guys, don't look forward and don't look back. I know everybody in this community, because you'll see it on Twitter and you'll hear it in the streets, and when the bracket came out, everybody in the community is like, well, it's going to be a St. Charles Parish quarterfinals. But, we have to get there first. We can't look forward to playing Destrehan. And I'm sure, when Coach Robichaux does his show, he'll say the same thing. They have to get there first. So, I'm cautioning our guys, don't look forward to next week. You got to get a win this week to get to next week. And so, for us, our expectation, our goal is always to get to the Superdome and win a state championship. We talk about it. We don't hide from it. We know we're at a school that's won 5 of them. We know we're at a school that has a history of football success. So we don't back down or hide from it. And, that's our goal. But more importantly than any of that, our goal is to win this week, because there is no next week if you don't win this week.
Thanks for joining us this week, Coach.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
And that'll do it for this week's edition of Hahnville on the Prowl. For updates and news on Press Play Productions, check out our website at presstoplay.tv. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Press to Play. I'm your host, Austin Verde. Thanks for watching.